Hi, my name is Daniel Huss with Percussion How To. In today's video, we're going to go over how to properly apply muffling to bass drums, the different styles of muffling, and why exactly we do it the way that we do it. All of our muffling today has been provided to us by BassMuffling.com, some sexy gentlemen over there, free of charge, and I highly recommend checking them out. That muffling comes pre-cut for you, and it takes a lot of the pain out of actually muffling your bass drums. So what we're going to do today specifically is take the heads off the drums that you see behind me, and we're actually going to be muffling these bass drums. So as soon as we're done removing those heads, we'll walk you through the step-by-step process in which we're going to take, and we'll be back with you after we're done. And we're back. A big thank you to the Del Norte High School kids for helping us remove all these drum heads while we sat around eating pizza. So let's go into the details about how to actually get the muffling inside the drum itself. Now, the amount of width that's in contact with the head is very, very important and needs to vary by the size of the drum. Now, this is just a personal preference, having experimented with several different size widths and different drums, but I'm going to walk you quickly through the sizes that we are going to use today. To my right, I have a 16-inch bass drum. We're going to use a 1-inch width foam. Now, when I'm talking about 1-inch width, all of the foam that you see that we got from BassMuffling.com is 3 inches deep, but the 1-inch part is the amount that's going to be actually in contact with the head itself. So for the 16, again, we're using the 1-inch. For the 18 here, we're going to use 1.5-inch foam. Again, personal preference. You could also probably get away with using 1-inch foam here. For the 20-inch drum to my left, we're going to also use 1.5-inch foam. For the 26-inch drum, we're going to use 2-inch foam. For the 28, we're going to use 2.5-inch foam. And finally, for the 32-inch, we're going to use 3-inch foam. Again, all those foam sizes are just kind of personal preference. The more width that you apply that is in contact with the drum head, potentially the drier that sound is going to be, the less resonant. And the reason that we use thicker amounts as we go up the drum is typically the larger drums are more resonant to begin with, so they need just a little bit more padding to kind of create that teardrop nice sound that we want. So typically on drums, you're going to be removing old muffling if they've been glued this way in the past. In our case, we have newer drums that have never had muffling, but if you do have muffling that's been in the drums and is glued to the shell previously, you're going to want to remove that, of course, and get as much of that particulate that's remaining there off as you can. You should be able to get most of it just picked off with your fingers. If a little bit sticks around, it's okay. If you want to get in there and do a really good job, you can always take an abrasive sponge and gently run it along the inside. But again, if you have a little bit of foam that's still stuck to the inside of the shell, it's not really that big of a deal. The only worry is that the new foam that we're applying is going to fall off because of that. So we're actually using a Remo PowerMax head. The Remo PowerMax head comes pre-muffled with this inner ring of muffling. Since we're applying our own muffling, again, personal preference, I would actually take this ring out and set it aside. We're not going to use it for our purposes. And as I mentioned, all of our foam came from BassMuffling.com, so it came in pre-cut lengths. But even so, you're going to want to get a quick feel for how to stick it in the drum by itself prior to gluing it. So I'm just going to put this in really quick. As you put this in, you want to make sure that you're getting about 1/10 of an inch of the foam above the bearing edge of the shell here. Again, that's a preference. More foam that's pressing against the head creates a little bit more pressure. Again, that's going to dampen the sound a little bit more. After experimenting, we really like that kind of 1/10 of an inch. So I'm going to quickly just measure that. And then as soon as I'm comfortable with this starting point, I'm just going to run my finger along the edge, the bearing edge, and make adjustments as I need to just get a sense of what that 1/10 of an inch should feel like. Again, we want as much even pressure of the foam on the head as possible, so it needs to be evenly above that bearing edge. Good. Cool. I'm satisfied with this. So now we're actually going to get into gluing. The glue that we are going to use is the 3M High Strength 90. 3M makes a number of products like this. I think they even make a 3M 80. After experimenting, we found that this is probably the best adhesive that you can use in this particular case. The reason is that, one, it's going to last. It works really well with the foam in contact with the shell. You can pretty much get this at any major hardware store like a Home Depot. The other thing that's cool about this particular foam is that the nozzle happens to spray in a flat pattern, which makes it ideal for trying to get our 3-inch width foam attached to the shell. So I'm going to go ahead and start gluing into the shell. I'm going to apply the glue here first. Check that nozzle. Make sure that you're getting a nice even coat. You don't want a whole lot to run down into the shell. Move around the drum. There we go. And after I've applied it to the inside of the shell, I'm going to go ahead and apply a nice coat to my foam as well. Fantastic. The last thing that you want is the foam coming off of the shell in the middle of a performance, or just so that you don't have to do this again. Cool. Rather than just shoving the foam in there, I'm going to do this pretty methodically. Once the glue comes in contact with the other glue, it gets a little bit hard to pull off, but if you do make mistakes, you can kind of just slowly work that foam, gently pull it off the shell and kind of adjust it. So I'm going to do this one section at a time, starting with this edge. Common mistakes that you can make as you're applying this are to have the foam too deep into the shell or too high above the bearing edge. So I'm going to do a quick check just to make sure already that it's about where I want it. This is a little low right here, so I'm going to raise it up. And as I put it in, I'm not pressing it against the glue so that it's not yet forming a solid bond. That makes it a little bit easier to adjust if I need to. Great. And again, I'm going to give this a quick check, a quick once-over to make sure that I have a nice, even, consistent height above that bearing edge. And again, we recommend that 1/10 of an inch distance. Okay, that feels pretty good. Once I'm satisfied with how the foam is in, I'm going to give it a nice little press just to make sure that it's solidly glued to the shell. Okay, and that's one side done. Now I'm going to let this dry before I put the head on. Again, I don't want to apply the pressure of the head to the foam just yet until it's dry because I don't want it to fall off. This is a perfect opportunity to muffle other bass drums and then put the heads on all at once. So we're going to let these dry, and then we're going to come back and talk just a little bit about putting the head on and tuning. Thanks. Now that we've gotten all of our bass drums muffled, it's time to put the head on. It's actually a relatively simple process, but there are a couple considerations that you want to walk through as you do so. It's a little bit easier to do this on the ground. So once you are ready, take your head. It should just fit right on. The first consideration that you need to think of is about your rim savers. It's really important that you get these in place in the correct area on the drum so that as you put lugs on, you don't have to take a lug off if you need to shift it later. So I'm going to get this situated right here. It's going to actually fit just like this. Great. After you've gotten your rim savers in the correct location, go ahead and start putting your lugs and rods on, but don't tighten them down very much yet. You want them to be just about finger tight, maybe a little bit looser. And the reason being is that you need to be able to shift the head, because you need to make sure that your logos for your bass drum are nice and flat to the ground. Now, I recommend doing this with the actual percussionist that will be wearing this drum, because according to body type, the logo could be at a slant one way or another. So have them actually put the drum on their harness and wear it while you're adjusting the head. Once that head is in the correct position, you're about ready to go ahead and start tightening down all the individual lugs and start getting the drum the way you want it to sound. Now, for more information about tuning, check out our entire section on Percussion How To about tuning your drums.